Hey guys, I'm Dave.
And I'm Len.
And welcome to Wargame Chat. Today we're going to talk about our favorite generals. We're not going to say the best generals there were, because if we say best generals and someone disagrees with us, they're going to have a conniption. So if we just say our favorites, people can handle it, that we have a different favorite than them. But why don't you start it out? Most of mine will be ancient generals, but start with your first.
A lot of it's going to be slanted in favor of ancient and medieval generals, because with the ancient generals, once you got over the horizon, you had to do more than just be a military man. You had to be a political leader at the same time. So a lot of these generals, they have to be good in politics as well as they are.
Well, they were warlords back then, essentially. So they had to be good at getting people on their side.
Yeah, they didn't get instructions from the Home Office. Mm-hmm. They had to make up the decisions on their own. They had general guidelines at the time. Of course, some of them, like Alexander the Great, he didn't have to. He was a king.
Yeah, he was a great. The best general ever would be him. Other than him, let's start with Julius Caesar. Obviously, Hannibal will be one too. We'll get to him. But Julius Caesar, what I liked about him is he was the ultimate warlord. He knew how to get different Gallic barbarian tribes to work with him. Obviously, a lot rebelled and stuff, but he knew how to put down rebellions. And he did things that in modern warfare you could not do legally. Like, the one thing he would do that you can't do in modern warfare is, let's say there was a tribe that rebelled and he put down the rebellion, and then they said, okay, after he killed a bunch of them or enslaved them or whatever, they said, okay, we'll be your subjects now. He would have them give hostages, and he would hold these hostages, and if this town or whatever ever rebelled against them again, he would kill the hostages, and oftentimes the hostages were like the leader of the town's children and stuff. So if he rebelled, well, there goes his whole family. They're all going to die. And another thing Julius Caesar did, he was great in battle in getting his troops to fight well. He knew the value of elite veteran troops. Like most of the battles he was in, there was only about 2 legions that did most of the fighting, and a lot of the other legions did very little of the fighting. Like the 10th Legion, which was his best, pretty much every battle he was in, he had the 10th fight just because they were so good. And then he was good at, I would call it, combat engineering, meaning when he was fighting Vercingetorix, I mean, he built the fortifications around where Vercingetorix was hiding, and then he built fortifications around those facing out the other direction. He got attacked from the inside by Vercingetorix and attacked on the outside by Vercingetorix's allies, and due to his good fortifications, the Romans survived and won the day. Basically, there's not many generals out there who could pull that off.
Oh, just as simple as the bridge over the Rhine. I think he did something. It built it in 12 days.
Yeah.
From design to finished assembly, marched across, sacked a number of German villages, and then calmly marched back and set it on fire just to say, yeah, we can come back anytime we feel like it, guys.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, one thing else about Caesar, he did win a sea battle. He fought against the Amorites, which were they were based in the Brittany Peninsula. I'm not sure what town it was, and they had more sailing ships. But what he did is he approached them. They had like booms with sharp razors on it, which just chopped the lines as they sailed past.
Speaking of naval stuff with Caesar, he got taken hostage by pirates. I think this was before, maybe he was a senator at the time or before he was a senator. Anyhow, they took him hostage, and I guess they were friendly with him. He used to talk to them and stuff, and they mentioned they were charging this many talents for him, and he was utterly outraged that they were charging that. So he ended up telling the people who bailed him out or paid his fee to pay twice as much, because he thought it was an insult that they asked so little for him.
Well, somebody said that he's supposed to have gone back and crucified them all. But somebody said
Yeah.
the only historical record says he went back and cut their throats.
Yeah,
So,
that's
but-
probably what happened.
Yeah, but the crucifixion, nice touch
Yeah.
to it.
Yeah.
And also, someone told me that Caesar is the greatest because he did one of the few things that people could not do at that time. That was defeat Roman legions. Because during the Roman Civil War, of course, he had to use other Roman legions to do it, but that's the only way to do it.
Yeah.
So, and of course, Hannibal was noted for the fact that he fought against great odds because the Romans almost always outnumbered him.
Yeah, severely outnumbered him.
But he also had like a army of various personnel, various groups and tribes, and he kept them together. And they kept the Romans off balance for about 20 years until they eventually had to force them back to Carthage.
Well, he was the master of, I guess you would call it, I don't know if you call it, doing tactics that the enemy didn't expect. Every battle Hannibal fought, he won except for the Battle of Zama. As far as I know, the Battle of Zama is the only battle where he was the actual general for it that he lost. But he was fighting Scipio, and Scipio was on to Hannibal's tricks.
Yeah, and also
And had a
actually,
few tricks of his own.
after that battle, Carthage and Rome signed a peace treaty. They owed Rome a whole bunch of money. So Hannibal took over the government, paid off the money, and they started to get suspicious because Carthage didn't seem to be properly punished. So Hannibal fled, and I think he was like a mercenary general for a while in the...
Well, they ended up killing him eventually, didn't they?
Well, what it is he actually fought a sea battle. I think he lost, and when the Romans were closing in on him, he killed himself.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Yeah, I knew he died at the end. But what surprised me is after that war that they allowed him to live. I mean, Jesus Christ, he killed hundreds of thousands of Roman soldiers. I mean, one battle alone, he killed, about 120,000 Roman soldiers?
Yeah,
that's like 12 legions. Or more than 12 legions. That would be like a legion, I think. Imperial was, about 4,000 or 5,000? Republic was probably pretty similar. So, yeah, we're talking like 24 legions.
Actually, I always thought it was 5,000 heavy infantry with 5,000 light infantry auxiliary.
Well, the legion... that's with the support, yeah. Assuming they had the support, but if you read like Caesar's chronicles of when he was in Gaul and stuff, it sounded like a lot of times when the legions went into battle, they might have had some like barbarian cavalry with, and that was about it. It didn't really talk about any skirmishers or anything. So I think a lot of times they just went into battle with the heavy infantry and a little bit of cavalry support. The cavalry generally wasn't part of the legion post-Marium reforms. They were usually either auxiliary cavalry or mercenaries they hired.
Okay, the next one is Count Belisarius.
Oh, yeah.
Byzantine. I don't know whether this is an ancient general or an early medieval general.
He was one good general. Alexander the Great and Hannibal would have complimented this guy. I mean, basically the Roman Empire, most of it had been taken over, and he conquered most of it back. He basically conquered the whole Mediterranean, didn't he? Or pretty much most of it?
He defeated the Vandals, yes. Which actually defeated Byzantium in an earlier war, about a few decades earlier. And then he moved on to Sicily and the Italian... He also defeated the Persian, major defeat against the Persians at Dara. So... and he every battle he fought, he was outnumbered, but he always managed to find the weak points. So
yeah, he was a good general.
And actually, what was interesting about he tended to lead from the front, and he was never wounded in battle. And there was one time when after he conquered Rome, the Goths were outside, so he sortied out, leading troops, and at a certain point, he and his bodyguard were surrounded by the Goths, but they fought their way out. So he was brave in battle, too.
Yeah, if he had been an imperial Roman general or Republic Roman general, more people would know about him. He was in the late Roman period, so that's why he's not talked about very much. For whatever reason, there's not as much interest in the late Roman period, at least by, I guess you would call them history aficionados, as there was for the Republican
Byzantium
Roman.
is like a lost country, so there's no people reminiscing about the good old days of Byzantium. You know, Turkey's a Islamic republic, so they tend to want to forget about Byzantium, except to commemorate when they took Constantinople. Oh, one thing, the one general, both Scipio and Hannibal agreed was Pyrrhus. They both admired him, and they thought only Alexander the Great was better than he was. And that's
Furious. Are you talking about the guy who had the Pyrrhic victory against the Romans?
Yep, the Pyrrhic victory.
The Macedonian successor, right? Yeah.
And the thing was is that I think which one of those two mentioned that Pyrrhus was the one who taught people how to march and how to camp. So, and you see, he had a number of battles, because I think he won a whole bunch of battles in Macedonia. Mm-hmm. And it's just, well, he did defeat the Romans, but not the way he wanted. So.
Well, that one, I think it was in Sicily, that one victory he had against the Romans, he said, if I have another victory like this, I'll lose my entire army.
That's true. Another medieval, Genghis Khan and his associates. Because actually, he was a top military leader, but he also had... there's about 3-4 other guys that won major victories.
Yeah, he had very good cavalry.
Yeah.
And Europeans and I guess Middle East and stuff, they did not have cavalry that could stand up to his very well.
Well, he had the horse archers, and we had the guys in plate armor.
His tactics were almost like blitzkrieg tactics, since everyone was on horseback. I mean, they'd knock out one enemy force, and then next thing you know, they're on the doorstep of another before the other force even heard about what happened. Kind of like, I guess you would call it blitzkrieg.
Okay. The other, to me, notable medieval one was Richard the Lionhearted. He may have been a terrible king, but boy, was he a good military leader.
I have a micro game, I think, about that. We got to play that one of these days.
There's one battle, Arsuf, in the Third Crusade, where he fought marching down the coastal highway, and Saladin could not defeat him, because usually medieval battles are just line-em-ups. But this one, he's marching, and Saladin tried his best, but every time he got close, he was pushed back. So.
What do you got there, Duke of Marlborough?
Yeah. I always mention him because he seems to be the first, in the gunpowder age, it's hard to describe, because the most generals in the gunpowder age only fought like a couple battles. And the Duke of Marlborough was the first, well, it was the first time Britain was fighting on the continent in force. Usually they had like, 1 or 2 volunteer regiments. They were controlled by the home country, but in the Duke of Marlborough, he had a British army. And the first time he had to deal with also alliances, which is tough in itself. A lot of times what the Duke of Wellington did was he just repeating what the Duke of Marlborough did. He knew how to make alliances with allies and how hard it was. So, and of course we got to mention Freddie the Great. Napoleon summed it up beautifully when he and his field marshals were standing at Frederick's tomb. Napoleon looked at it and said, "If he was here, we wouldn't be." So, again, this is one guy who fought outnumbered and won some amazing victories. Yeah, a few bloody defeats too, but that was rough. Actually, I should, for 19th century American generals, I should mention Winfield Scott, because actually he was.
I've heard the name. I can't. What war is he associated with?
Okay, he was in the War of 1812. He commanded like a brigade.
Oh, okay.
He in the Mexican War. He's the one who marched from Veracruz to Mexico City, and he got tired of defending his supply line, so he just rolled them up. And even the Duke of Marlborough was amazed over this.
Mm.
And also, he planned the strategy for the national strategy for the American Civil War. So, but he was old fuss and feathers, and everybody. Well, it's like everybody found some reason to dislike him.
Yep.
So that's why we remember U.S. Grant, who showed people how to win battles, campaigns, and wars.
Mm.
His legacy lives on. So.
What do you have on the other side? Anyone?
I was working on some of the Admirals.
Oh,
Like,
okay.
what are the 20th century generals?
Well, a lot of people like Patton. Are you talking about American ones?
American or foreign?
Rommel,
Well,
Hans Guderian.
yeah.
They're excellent generals. Patton is more known for his personality than his actual tactical skills. I mean, you got people to fight hard, but he was like no tactical genius like Rommel was or Guderian was. I mean, those guys could outthink him and without any difficulty.
It's hard to rate Guderian because actually there are a lot of German generals who were jealous of him. He seemed to have a abrasive personality.
Well, then it's just like Patton. Then.
Yeah, but well, one thing we should MacArthur. Old Dugout Doug, who led the march across the Pacific to free the Philippines.
Yeah, well, you could argue the reason the Philippines fell in the first place was due to his incompetence.
Yeah.
I mean, there had just been Pearl Harbor, and he left all those U.S. planes just sitting on the ground and stuff unprotected, and then another Pearl Harbor happened then in the Philippines. And the thing that he did that really pissed me off is these guys were in the Patan, what was that, Peninsula or whatever, and there's basically no medical care for these wounded soldiers and stuff, and they got I don't know if it was a submarine or something to come out and get MacArthur, so instead of taking a bunch of wounded soldiers who would have died if they didn't get the medical care, he had his personal furniture and belongings put on the submarine, which really leaves a bad taste in your mouth. So yeah, I don't consider him one of the great generals of the 20th century. I mean, he was good at talking himself up, but yeah, taking your...
There's one Australian leader or general who said that, well, after I got over his God of War routine, his acting, and probably nobody in Shakespeare could have done oratory better than Douglas. I found out the guy was actually very good at the military stuff. He never wanted to waste lives, and he treated the Australians very much better than the British government ever did.
Mm.
So,
yeah, I mean, in Korea, I mean, what was that amphibious landing he did?
Aichang.
That worked really well. I mean, he's got to be commended for that. The problem is, though, when all his troops started moving north, they were just moving forward in a rush, and then when the Chinese invaded, they caught these divisions all by themselves, and they got eaten up by the Chinese. But before they were able to fall back and form like a cohesive line, so they were spread out and out on their own, and they got hit hard.
Well, the reasoning in Douglas MacArthur's headquarters was they knew the Chinese were intervening, but they thought that what they were doing is essentially sending a few divisions south of the Yalu to make sure MacArthur wouldn't cross the Yalu into China. They said that probably only a couple divisions, and that's all they needed. And it says if they wanted to intervene in big numbers, they would have done it earlier when we were trapped against the sea at Puzan. But if they're going to intervene now in large force, these guys are crazy. And we found out the Chinese are crazy.
Let's see, what other generals from the 20th century? None I can think of, really.
Well, I tend to Hugh Dowling, who commanded Fighter Command in Battle of Britain. The entire battle was, he thought out how to create the defensive system and then worked it so that his buddy Keith Park could run it for him and still get the job done. So, but it seemed to be everything, because everybody thought the bomber was going to get through, and he had the faith that the fighters could actually do something. So, yeah, the problem with 20th century generals is we could see their weak points, and also they're just expected to command troops. They have little to say in national policy.
Well, in the modern era, in Western countries like the United States, Europe, or Australia, or whatever, you'll never get another Julius Caesar, you'll never get another Hannibal, and you'll never get another Alexander the Great, because essentially these people had to be monarchs with total control of everything, not just total control of the military, total control of the society. And since we have a democracy, a general doesn't have that kind of power anymore, so we'll never see people like that again, because they just don't have enough power to do the things they're capable of doing.
Yeah, because
however, our enemies, some of these ones with despots in charge of the country who are essentially dictators, they, on the other hand, if they were tactically sound, they could become another Alexander the Great or Julius Caesar or Hannibal, since they don't have a Congress to answer to or anything.
well, we're thinking like Putin, Vladimir Putin. He seems to be a master of politics. But when it comes to the military, in fact, we had a running joke in the early part of the Ukrainian war, is the reason why he's not threatening to nuke people is he doesn't know Russia has nukes.
Well, I don't know, not to get into the Ukraine stuff with this video, but they just said there's some Wagner mercenaries or something who were marching onto Moscow, but I guess they just turned around now or stopped their march or something. But it almost sounded like there was going to be a revolution, but that's a story for another time.
I thought it was just a phony story. What it is, it's the cover story so that no one knows that all the Russian troops are massing for one big push or something. The problem with the Ukraine-Russian war is you can't trust either side. They're both lying. They're either deliberately lying or they don't know what they're talking about.
Well, that could be said about both sides in all wars. So,
yeah. So
all right, that's all we got, guys.
Yeah.
See you next week.